Okay, for next lecture, we'll talk about soil fauna. Okay, of course, when talk about soil fauna is also talking about the heterotrophic organisms in the soil. Previously, we talked about soil microbes, and now we talk about soil fauna. It's another heterotrophic organisms in the soil. So basically, we talk about the animals in the soil. So this is kind of a layman terms about it's a layman term. Okay, sorry. So what are these? What are the soil fauna? So a little bit about soil fauna. This actually is the some animals that become major heterotrophs in the soil systems. So they exist in the soil food webs. We will discuss about soil food webs later in the course. So at the same time, they can be, some of them are true herbivores. They can feed to the plants and to the fungi, for instance, and some of them are really carnivores and parasites and top predators. So they are very important in the soil food webs. Okay. So another discussion that we need, I want to discuss in this lecture is how to characterize the soil fauna. Okay, so one of the ways to describe how to characterize the soil fauna is based on the degree of presence in the soil, which consists of the life cycle, how the life cycle of the organisms of this soil fauna uh, in the soil, okay, in the soil ecosystems. So okay, first of all, we can look at some of the first one is the transient. Okay, these transient organisms is consists of some their life cycle basically mainly on the ground, so on the soil, on the top of the soil, where they use the soil as part of their habitat, probably just their living space or whatever. So but they don't go inside the inside the soil. So all the egg, juvenile and adult life is on the ground. This is the transition. This is part of the hypodemia species like Cleptra species. Okay, family, Cleptra family. Another one is temporary. So another classification or characterization is a temporary, where uh, some of their life cycle is in the soil. Okay, basically they lay eggs in the soil. The life cycle, the juvenile stage in the soil, and when they reach the adulthood, okay, their adult life will be on the ground. Okay, so this is a temporary. So another one is periodic. Periodic means that all life cycle is in the soil. Okay, from the egg to adult. The only difference is when during the adult they try to find food outside the ground. So they will go out and come in and out of the soil throughout the adult life. So this is a periodic. The last one is the permanent one. Permanent soil fauna are basically all the life cycle from the egg to adult. They feed, they grow, they all the life cycle is in the soil. So these are the some the figures that you can see that this is some the temporary inactive geophiles. This is temporary. So this is basically temporary. This is periodical geophiles, and since geobites, which is basically how they look like in the soil system. So another way to classify soil fauna, you know that we have different types of classification is based on the microfauna, mesofauna, macrofauna, and megafauna. So these characteristics are based on two ways. First is based on their body length. So in 1970s, Wawak tried to differentiate soil fauna based on the body length. So you can see that they put all this microfauna, mesofauna, and macrofauna in their characteristics based on the body length. And back later in 1979, they also used the body width. Okay, the body width. So you can see that this is how the differentiation between micro, meso, and macro and megafauna. Okay, we can see that what's make these two characterization difference. As you can see that before this in the microfauna only protozoa. Okay, only protozoa is in the microfauna, but this is based on the body length. You can see that nematodes here and rotifera is in the mesofauna group because of their body length. But when we talk about body width, okay, when we talk about body width, we can see that in this paper they also include bacteria and fungi. You can see that nematode, protozoa, and rotifera is in the microfauna group because they are very slender. So based on the body width, they put this microfauna, nematode, and rotifera as part of the microfauna. So based on your you can have this kind of debate, and depends on how you want to characterize your soil fauna. Okay, another way to characterize, I'm not saying this is characterization, but based on how you can look at soil fauna is based on their organization of the soil food web. Again, we'll talk about the soil food web later, but again, most of the soil fauna are within the, especially the microbes. Okay, they are in the micro food web, where they are basically the decomposers, some nutrient converter, nutrient converter, and so on. But another one, we can have some of that, what it calls as a little transformers. I don't know which one is Autobots. I don't know which one is the Decepticons. Right? But anyway, they are the detritus of the in the soil fauna, in the soil ecosystems. And another one, what we call as the ecosystem engineers. So what we call as ecosystem engineers is they provide the habitat in the soil. They provide the structure in the soil where they can make everybody, other organisms can live in the they can create what I can say, suitable habitat for other organisms. Okay, so these are all called as ecosystem engineers. We have ants, termites, and earthworms. I will have a special discussion on earthworm later on. So I will go into details about certain organisms, as microfauna, mesofauna, megafauna, and macro and megafauna. But I want to make a disclaimer here. I'm not going into details about the specific organisms and so on and so forth. What kind of date? But I think you can have this in details in other courses where we talk about biological organisms. But I'll just focus on their functions and their roles in the soil. Okay. So microfauna. So again, when we talk about microfauna, we talk about free living protozoa. So basically, it's protozoa is one of the important part. Okay, important organism as a microfauna instead of plus nematode and rotifera. But we talk about it later. Okay. So of course, you know that some of them have flagellates, some of them like different types of morphological protozoa. Okay, but one, of course, when talk about where we can find it in the soil, principally we can find it in the upper few centimeters in the soil. They also, but they also can find in the depths up to 200 meters. Depends on which area and what kind of study that you need. But of course, they live in basically in the soil rhizosphere. But what importance about protozoa is most of the protozoa are bacterial feeder. What you call not only bacterial but microbial feeder. So which means that they feed in with to the microbes, which is bacteria and fungi, but mostly fungi. Mostly bacteria. Okay, so this is what we call. There are some of researchers call a microbial loop, which means that when the bacteria become higher, and then it provide food for this protozoa, and then the population of protozoa start to increase based on the feed, and then of course the bacteria will start to drop because of the feeding, and then after that the protozoa will start, the population start to drop. So based on like what we can see here in the graph, where this one is the bacteria. So we can see that the high population of bacteria, we don't see any uh, protozoa or any amoeba here. But once any flagellates or any amoeba here, so once the bacteria start to increase, this is what we call as after the rainfall. So when the bacteria start to increase, population start to increase because of the rainfall, okay, so the other organisms, the flagellates and amoeba, the protozoans, start to increase. Okay, start to increase. So then you can see the protozoa, the flagellates shoot up immediately because of the excess or because of the source of food. Okay, after that, when they start to feed the bacteria, and then start the population of bacteria start to drop, and then of course the organisms start, the flagellates and amoeba start to decrease their population. So this is how what we call as the microbial loop. Okay, so of course when we talk about the protozoa, because the relationship between this protozoa and also the the microbes, because they also can produce the plant growth promoting compounds. Yeah, because that this is based on the relationship between the protozoa and also the bacteria. This is something that we need to discuss further, and probably more research need to be done for this kind of uh, research or this kind of study. Okay, so another next we talk about mesofauna. Okay, of course, this is part of the nematode, because we talk about based on the body length. Yeah, because of body length, nematode can be considered as a mesofauna. So this is one of the important organisms, if I can say about it. A lot of plant disease, a lot of problems in crops caused by the nematode, but not all nematodes. Okay, I want to stress about it. Okay, so basically this is how the nematodes look like. Nematodes look like. Okay, they are very slender. Okay, they have different types of feeding habits. Okay, based on their structure of the mouth. So for instance, this one is a bacteria, this one is bacterial feeder, this one is bacterial feeder, this one bacteria, but this one is feed on plant and fungi. These two plant feeder, and this is they classify as omnivore. They are the poor feeder, they just eat on everything, whatever they can chew. And this one is bacterial feeder. So based on this, based on bacterial feeder and plant feeder or fungi feeder, which one can cause problem in for the crops? Is the plant feeder or the bacterial feeder? So basically, the good the good nematodes for the plants, for the crops, are the bacterial feeder, not the plant feeder. Okay, why? So basically, so again, when you talk about the soil fauna, we talk about nematodes. I want to discuss about the where can we found them. So of course, the rhizosphere is a zone of considerable metabolic activities. Then therefore, we can find nematodes a lot in their rhizosphere. Then because they found it as hotspots, because they have a lot of organic matter, and they want to feed on all the living organisms in the soil rhizosphere. Of course, they are very sensitive to available salt water. So why they are very sensitive with the water? Because they move through the water. They move with the water. So whenever they have water, so nematodes will move to the soil pores, okay, to one spot to another. So they feed in this small pores in the soil. So that's why the soil aggregates is very important, because soil aggregates can create these pores. So nematodes will move around the pores and then feed all the organisms that reachable through the soil. So that's why that's very important to uh, very important the water for the nematodes. Okay, so again, there's some other organisms that just want to give some pictures about it. This is Rotifera. So this is a water bear, tardigrada. For those who watch Ant-Man, say once when he shrink, and then the first one of the organism that I saw is that this water bear try floating around. So it's interesting creature because they can stay dormant when they in a very stress because in a very stressed environment they send it to the moon they send it to the space. Tardigrada they become dormant, become like a egg like, because they can squeeze everything and can this and still they can stay alive in the space there. So this organism is very interesting, at least for me. Okay. Another organisms that I want to show you guys is the macroarthropods. So you can have this collembola, you can have this acari, different types of curry. So there are a few other microarthropods, Protra, Dipelura, Microcarifia, and then Symphila. Okay, so these are microarthropods. Another microarthropods is show here. Okay, so another group, of course, we talk about the macrofauna. So when we talk about microfauna, we're talking about the organisms that you cannot see with our naked eye. So we need to, if you want to identify them, if you want to look into them, we need to have this. We need to use the microscope. Okay, so but the macrofauna is a organism that we can see with our naked eyes. Okay, so first we can talk about macroarthropods. We have the different types: Arthropoda, Diplopoda, Chilopoda, Scopionada, Arani, different types of organisms. I think you have learned this in another subjects. But these are some of the organisms. And one of the organisms that I feel very important in terms of the macrofauna is this white paper pterygoid insects or the termites, because they create mounds. They are soil engineer, with, if I can say, that can change the structure in the soil. So which can cause different uh, uh, structure and habitat in the soil for another organism. So of course for the soil ecosystem. Okay, another one is what we call as a gastropoda, the snail. Okay, but the most important part, if I can stress here, that the influence of soil biota and soil processes in the ecosystems, in the soil ecosystems. There are two types of uh, influence, or the soil processes in the soil, what we call as nutrient cycling. One is a nutrient cycling, and another one is soil structure. Okay. Uh, some of you asked me about soil aggregation models, about that kind of concept. Okay, basically they want to look at this soil structure. We'll talk about nutrient cycling later on in this course. Okay, again we have this microflora, microfauna, mesofauna, and macrofauna. And of course, some of you ask me, what is microflora? What is called microflora? Basically, microflora is the fungi. Okay, so basically these are the character the functions in the nutrient cycling and the soil structure. So this is also microfauna. So some of the bacteria they put in the microfauna group. Okay, because the habit of the bacteria is like an animal. Okay, so you can pause these slides and then you can look at it and read it and then try to understand what are the influence of the soil biota on the soil processes in the soil ecosystem.